Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Q Points Podcast. I am DJ Sir Daniel.
And my name is Jay Ray, sometimes known by my government as Johnny Ray Cornegay III. What's happening, people?
Jay Ray, we are in store for an amazing conversation because do you recall back in the day when we would watch television and the regular scheduled program would be preempted and there was that spinning logo that said special program? Well, that's what's happening here on Q Points Podcast for this episode, because we are about to endeavor on a conversation that is near and dear to our hearts and should be to yours. Ain't that right, Jay Ray?
Absolutely. So for actually the last year or so, we've been having a conversation behind the scenes about literacy. We listen to music. Sir Daniel, this is a music podcast, right? We listen to the music and we listen to the composition, we listen to the lyrical content, and we ask questions, right?
Yeah. We ask a lot of questions. And you know what? Reading is fundamental, Jay Ray. So I'm going to go ahead and go by our show run. And I'm going to ask you to make sure that you let the people, it's still business has to be taken care of. Yes. I want you to go ahead and let the people know how they can subscribe to Q Points and purchase our wonderful merchandise.
Boom. Yes. So first and foremost, thank you all for tuning into Q Points. If you can see us, if you can hear us, hit the subscribe button wherever you are. We really appreciate it. Do us a solid, y'all. And this is all the free stuff. We're just going to run down the free stuff that you can do. Do us a solid, share the show with your friends, family, colleagues. If you enjoy Q Points, chances are they will enjoy Q Points, because as you see, we of course talk about music, but we talk about Black culture in general. So they will get a lot out of this show too. So share it with them. Go ahead over to our website at qpoints.com. You can do several things. You can join our mailing list, which you should. You can read our magazine, Q Points Mag. That's where we have some additional stuff about all the topics that we cover on the show. And to Sir Daniel's point, shop our store, store.qpoints.com. You see all those lights behind Sir Daniel. See how they're glowing? They're like coming up from the back. We got to keep the lights on at Q Points, and you can support us by doing that by definitely shopping our store. We would appreciate it.
Pretty please. So at J Ray, as we say goodbye to the summer, I know there's a lot of young people that are experiencing that anxiety that comes with going back to school and just getting ready, having to switch that mode from staying up late to having to get back on a schedule and getting yourself up on time so that you can get up and get the bus or however you get to school. And then you have to switch your mind on as well and get ready to start taking information. Yes. Well, Jay Ray, first let me ask you this. Do you recall what was getting ready for school like for you as a kid? Because first of all, I grew up in the Northeast, so school didn't start until September for us.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So a lot of kids are going to school, like here in the South, they're going to school in August, which is in a couple weeks. Yeah. So, but for us, like, do you recall what it was like when you were getting ready to head back to school and what was important to you?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So my mom specifically was one of those parents that we always had schoolwork to do in the summer. So she was very much from the school of, we actually had a chalkboard in the dining room of our house. So, and as I got old enough, I was responsible for like tutoring my brother on like math, like that was part of the job. So in the summer, I was always kind of 1 foot in of the learning mode and 1 foot out. So for me, getting ready for school looked like, well, one, you knew it was time, Sir Daniel, when you went into the store and suddenly the seasonal aisle shifted to books and pencils and whatever. So I remember
Trapper Keepers. Don't forget Trapper Keepers.
Bruh. Can we? Okay, that we can't. We ain't even got time for that on this
I
show to
know.
talk about
I
the
know.
Trapper Keeper. But I do remember that piece of just like being excited about new school stuff. So whether it be clothes, whether it be stuff to get to take back to school with me. What about you, Sir Daniel? What do you remember?
It's pretty much the same thing. So, all right. So, like we said, we mentioned briefly about the Trapper Keeper. We can't really talk about it, but the lunchboxes was so important.
The
It was
lunchbox
so
game.
important. Your lunchbox game was more important than your sneaker game back in the day. But anyway,
Yes.
so I was in private school, so the school clothes part was taken care of. I had a uniform, but for me, I would go back and forth between New York and Barbados during the summers. And as an only child, one of the things that I enjoyed to do a lot was reading because I'm an only child.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would, if I'm on the plane, I would have something to read. And then when I would go visit my relatives in Barbados, I would, for whatever reason, I always had access to comics, or I was always asking for comic books. I was really into the Rin Tin Tin series of books, as well as Archie and Betty and Veronica specifically. So
Yeah.
I was still reading. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't academic, no chalkboards in my house. It wasn't academic, but I was still reading. My imagination was still being
Yes.
fed. And I think that is so critical to the development of young minds as they grow. And even when you're experiencing music,
Mm-hmm.
because information is being fed to you, being able to read J Ray, in my opinion, allows you to analyze what is being sung or rapped to you. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. The learning, the reading, the comprehension even helps you to kind of, if you can comprehend a sentence mostly, even words in the sentence that you don't understand, you can kind of figure out what that word means. And
Hmm.
that's so critical. So I remember that too, of just being able to allow reading to, one, expand my imagination like you said, but also help me to just understand things,
Yes.
and also the space that we got to occupy where there were just all these books around. I remember how special it was to be able to walk into the library in the school. In
Hmm.
elementary school, I
Hmm.
still remember what it looked like. It felt like a room that was as big as my house. It probably wasn't that big, but
Probably
it
wasn't.
felt that big. And I remember how important the librarian was to just helping us to discover possibilities in the books.
Libraries, when I was growing up, the library was like my first libraries for a kid, or a kid in my age, the decade that I grew up, is probably, what can I compare it to? It's like making a Starbucks run for an adult. Going to the library was like my errand, like, okay, change clothes, put your books down, put your bag down. Come on, let's go. We got to go to the library. You have, I would get to spend an hour, and I would you get to pick two or three books, whatever
Yep.
your limit was. And it was just, like you said, it was exciting,
Mhm.
and mostly because it was outfitted for children. Like you said,
Yes.
it appeared larger than what it probably was, because everything is outfitted. Specifically, kids' libraries are outfitted for them. Everything is scaled to their size. So you're absolutely right. It's one of the very few places that you felt important, and you felt
Yes.
like things were created and set up for you. So that's why going to the library was a very fun and an exciting experience for me as a child. But Q Points Podcast family, you are in for a special treat, because in this discussion on the importance of literacy on Q Points, J Ray and I, we're intelligent, but we're not that intelligent when it comes to everything. We don't know everything, I should say. And so we made sure that we reached out to a brother,
Yeah.
specifically a brother, that can speak directly to the importance of the of libraries and library
Yes.
sciences and library systems across this nation. So, J Ray, I'm going to let you do the honors and introduce our special guest.
Absolutely. We are so honored, Q Points family, to welcome Kelvin Watson to Q Points. I want to read his bio because it's really important that you understand Kelvin's background. Kelvin is the executive director of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. He oversees 25 branches run by 600 plus employees, spanning 8,000 square miles with a budget of 77 million and a collection of 3.2 million items. Kelvin has brought innovative, award winning leadership to Nevada's largest library system, and his deep experience in fundraising, technology, program development, and demonstrated success in addressing the digital divide has brought a new era to this library system. Regarded as one of the most highly respected thought leaders in the library industry, Kelvin is credited with expanding his customer base in multiple library management roles through outreach efforts to underserved and diverse populations. Kelvin earned a bachelor's degree in business administration and a minor in military science from Lincoln University in Missouri. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated and Beta Phi Mu Honor Society. Q Points, we are honored to welcome Kelvin Watson to the show. How are you, man?
I'm fine, J Ray. How are you?
We are, listen, so grateful. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to spend some time with us and really help us dive into something that, as music lovers, as a podcast host, that we feel like is really important. So, thank you for being willing to share some of your knowledge with us.
No worries. I'm looking forward to the conversation, and the pre-conversation has me already thinking.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's jump into that. So, as you can see on Q Points, Kelvin, right, we use our memories as a way to kind of settle ourselves into a discussion. So, question for you: what is your earliest memory of visiting the library, and what impact did it have on you?
So one of my earliest memories, but first I'd probably say that I agree with DJ Sir Daniel in that we're all three of us are probably we're from the same
Mm-hmm.
decade, so we
Yeah.
visited the library the same way. The card catalog and all the
Yes.
things that the physical card catalog, actually the card catalog
Right,
is
where you had to
still
pull it out the
around.
drawer.
It's just digital now. You had to pull it out. You had to take the card with the book, to the desk.
Yes.
The stamp of the date due slip. The librarian would take the card and put. I remember all of this
Yeah.
because there wasn't that long. It was long ago, but not that long ago.
Right.
So my first memory, and I grew up in St. Louis,
Mhm.
inner city of St. Louis, and so my first memory, or one that I remember most, is that we used to have these little small community libraries. Only about four people could probably fit in the library. It was really small,
Mm,
and it sat on the corner of Kingsbury and DePere. Actually, I remember the street,
Mhm.
not far from my house. And I checked out I checked out the book. It was Sidney Sheldon's The Master of the Game. I think I had just watched the series. I don't know if you
Mhm.
guys watched the
I
series,
did.
but that show, the series, it was like a nighttime Young and the Restless type thing.
Yeah.
And so I checked this book out. I'm 8 years. I had to be about 8 years old, maybe. The book is like 300 plus pages, and I go home and I'm reading about things that I saw in the series, but also I'm reading more about the diamond mines of Africa, like South
mm,
Africa, and all these other things that didn't necessarily come out in the series. But when you're reading a book, that's what you can get so much more details. And so that's my memory. And that I also a few years ago now, I also had the opportunity to thank my the librarian,
Oh
in
wow.
my role, in that I have become a librarian, And at that time, I was the president of the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. The conference was being held in St. Louis, and my librarian was attending the conference. And so I had the opportunity to thank her um, for being helping us helping us black kids out with reading and being there for me. And so that's my memory of the public library. School library, if I can just say that real quick, I was the school library helper in the fourth grade. My third grade teacher had become the school librarian. And so I was her helper in the fourth grade. So you talk about the school library being as large, and remember, so I have memories of that and shelving books. And certainly back then, I never would have thought that I would be a librarian and or leading my second library now. Yeah.
Well, Jerry, I think it's safe to say Kelvin is walking in his purpose based on
Okay.
based on those recollections. Because, but like you, Kelvin, you know, those trips to the library and opening those books definitely took us to different worlds and exposed us to, you know, different people, different walks of life. I remember being heavily impacted and heavily enjoying the Judy Blume series, right? When I was
Yes.
growing up. Those used to be, I mean, that was my favorite. Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing, I believe, was the very first book that I checked out, and I related to it big time. But so, Kelvin, what's happening now, though, is a lot of kids aren't going to be able to necessarily experience a Judy Blume book in public libraries, or they may not be able to get their hands on a Sidney Sheldon book in the libraries because of, you know, widespread political
Mm-hmm.
uprisings and using books in
Mm-hmm.
schools, books in libraries as a political point or a way to gain points with voters. Um, and one of the things that people are confused about, or I'll say I'm confused about, is how exactly are library systems typically funded,
Okay.
and you know, based on that, how much I guess weight can that be put on libraries and what books are put in there?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few different there's not one easy answer. So I'll make it as clear as I can. And we touched on public libraries being one thing. I touched on the school library, but there's multiple libraries that serve the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Schools, they serve our students. The public library, we serve the entire community. And then there's academic libraries that serve their students on campus. And if it's a publicly funded university, then that library is also or can be also open to the public as well. So
Mm-hmm.
let's frame the library. Let's frame the types of those types of libraries. Uh, the funding mechanisms for public libraries are primarily from. Uh, it depends on the like if it's a county library, for example,
Uh-huh.
that library is most often funded by the county,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a county agency. It fights for its funding alongside the police, the hospital, the fire department, so on and so forth, right? If it's a city library, same,
Mm-hmm.
right? They also are fighting, and you'll know most of the time what type of library it is by the name of the library. So
Okay.
New York
Okay.
City,
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn, those are all funded by the city.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
County, when I worked for Broward County, we were a county agency. Here in Nevada, we don't have a lot of city or county libraries, even though our names may say that. So my library is the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. So
Mm-hmm.
the district piece adds a nuance in that I am not a county or a city agency. I serve the city and the county, 8,000 square miles, but I'm funded by the state. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
receive,
That's a totally
I,
different.
I so I'm sort of like we're independently funded by the state, like a state agency. So we get our money from sales tax and property tax. But at the end of the day, all libraries are somehow publicly funded. And so when you talk about the weaponization or the
Mm,
the politics behind it, the public in some way is funding the library. Same thing with schools, same thing as I mentioned with the academics. And so that's why you have individuals trying to get on library boards or school
mm,
library boards because the boards actually create are responsible for the policy creation. And so if you can impact the policy, you can impact
well,
potentially what books are being purchased, what program, it even goes beyond the bookstore, what programming is actually being, held, right? Because there's programming like during Pride Week, for example, we get a lot of people who complain about our programming and our book displays, right? And then we get the letters and I get the letters and that we're grooming kids and we're doing all of the stuff. But in reality, what we're really doing is we're providing information at the end of the day. And I can go on and on, but information is key to what you like. The book
Yeah.
can take you, as we just talked about. Books can take you places, and it can
Yes.
take you to spaces that you weren't even familiar with, or can educate you about a particular topic. And that information is what people are trying to not share, or they're trying to create a new narrative, or new let's say a new history by
Mm.
not having that information be shared. So I'm
Yes.
pretty
wow.
passionate about this topic, as you can see. But at the end of the day, that's the problem.
Mm.
It's politicizing, but it's also not giving people information to either make informed decisions, about a particular topic, or about a particular lifestyle, or whatever, right? And my job and librarians' jobs are primarily to be, very democratic,
Mhm.
not necessarily neutral, but democratic, in that we provide the information for everybody.
Can I
Go ahead.
you
Go ahead.
I have so many things, Kelvin, but Kelvin, you might actually remember this from I remember I was working at Borders at the time, and we had got in the Kite Runner.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like we had, because we had promos, right? And it was like, oh, well, let me read this book. I'm hearing a lot about it. Let me read it. I was riveted by this story. Now, this story, the beauty of books, right, is the story wasn't about me or my experience at all. But I felt like in reading this book that I had an understanding of a part of the world that I had not visited, but I felt like I related to it, right? The beauty of the information and just the connectedness that books give us, I just can't overstate it enough. I always talk about music and books help to expand my worldview. I hadn't traveled anywhere yet, because I had books and music, I was able to travel to all of these places, and I didn't leave Chester, PA yet.
Yeah, we librarians are really information. That's my job. Information. I go back. It's to give and provide access.
To
It's
information.
to let people discover what they haven't been able to discover, and then to create the mechanisms of delivery of either a physical book, which you can come to our branches and get, or we've now got outposts in, we got vending machines like Redbox. You can, we got those
Really?
in different places. Yeah, we do that in Las Vegas, and then but
Look,
then we
cake
have
and
digital.
books and vending
Right.
machines in Vegas.
Yes. So we have a vending machine actually in a mall, and we also have one in a hospital here in Vegas, in
Wow.
a hospital waiting room. But
Mm-hmm.
then we also have, of course, the digital access, right? So we've put access to digital books on 400 buses here. We've put access to digital books at a halfway house. We've got digital books at a prison. We've got, we're working on a project now to do this in a hospital. And so that's what it is about: access, discovery, and delivery of information.
Access, discovery, and delivery. And I mean, you know, I was thought I was going to ask you about what kind of impact your team is having on the county,
Answered.
but you already look, you got that. You already answered that. If you can, if there's no reason not to have some piece of literature or something to expand your mind these days. And J Ray, you kind of alluded earlier to um, librarians and
Yeah.
talking about the importance of librarians and how most recently, you know, in social media, like librarians and the topic of librarian science or the job of a librarian itself had come up in social media. But just based on that, do you think like have you seen an uptick in people coming to libraries now? Has the flow, the people coming into the library, has it increased?
Well, we continually see people using the library. Like people, you know, I've been in the library book space for a long time. Jay Ray and I worked at Borders
Mhm.
together. Before
Mm-hmm.
Borders, I worked at a library distribution company that's part of a larger book distribution company. And so I've been in this space with libraries or working with libraries since 1998, so a very long time. I didn't become a librarian until 2007. So I actually didn't get my library degree till 2007, went to library school in 2005. And so people put a death nail in libraries in the early 2000s with, more people using the internet, people
Uh-huh.
searching Google. Um, and so they were like, well, why do you need the library? Well, if I look around, there's certainly been hundreds of library buildings that have been built since that conversation was had. Right?
Right.
Right? There's libraries being built every day. We're
Every
actually
day.
building one. We're building a 40,000 square foot library here in Las Vegas that we're planning to open next year. So again, libraries are still being built. Books are still being purchased in the books and people, I
Yes.
mean, in the libraries, and people are still coming. Um, During COVID, libraries had to figure out how to serve the people who primarily came to the library for physical books. So we have and we did increase the number of digital access books that people could get, ebooks, digital audio books. Of course, we're more than books too. Remember that also. I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned programming.
Mm-hmm.
We have digital magazines, for example, physical magazines. We got streaming movies. We actually still lend DVDs here in our libraries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because people in
Mm-hmm.
our communities don't have, believe it or not everybody has Netflix. Not
Yeah.
everybody
Yep.
has Prime, right?
Right.
People
Right.
still borrow DVDs. They have
Yeah.
DVD players. So I get to see and learn like how privileged we are
Mm-hmm.
and how we've become, but not everybody has those things, and people need the library. They need the library for their books. People come in and check out 50 books at a time. The kids, we're the ones serving the students during the summers. Libraries are with because of summer. We used to call it summer reading.
Yep.
Now it's called summer challenge. They changed the name a few years ago, so it's summer challenge. And so we have a summer challenge going on for families. A couple of years ago, we added a summer challenge for adults, so the adults could participate, and we
Nice.
give prizes and all kinds of stuff to for people to as an incentive for them to read. So long answer, but the truth being, people are still using libraries.
Mm-hmm.
People are using them. They figured out again they can either come into the building or they can get something digital. So you don't never have to walk into a building. You don't ever have to walk into a library to use the library. The library is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
That's and that's how you
That's
have to think
amazing.
about it in that and from that perspective, right?
There are two types of people in the world: those who complain about the state of today's music and those who dig. I'm Jason Randall Smith, and I invite you to check out Radio B-Sides, Both Sides of the Surface, a music podcast championing the work of independent artists from around the way to around the world. With a primary focus on Creative Commons licensed music, think of this show as a never-ending virtual crate dig through a parallel universe of online labels, seeking out the hip-hop, soul, jazz, funk, and electronic music gems that are often hiding in plain sight, and hopefully demystifying the world of Creative Commons along the way, one song at a time. You can find Radio B-Sides wherever you listen to podcasts. For more information, visit the website at bsots.com. That's BSOTS.com.
While we're still here, you made mention about the fact that there's some people that don't have access um, to digital
Netflix.
platforms, or some people don't even have internet access.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people, and I don't think people realize how important libraries are also to people who are experiencing homelessness as and other difficulties, people who are suddenly unemployed. Briefly talk to us about that, how the library helps them, but also talk to our listeners about what it is that we, the public, what can we do to support you, your teams, not just in Vegas, but all across the nation, all
Yeah.
libraries across the nation. What can we as the public do to help support you?
So let me answer the first question about the digital divide and that work that we libraries do. As mentioned, that's some of the things that I have been have become, some people say, an expert in. And that's lending hotspots, lending tablets, working with different partners. Lower income. I don't focus on incomes at all, right? Because the library is for the haves and the have-nots. The library is remember I talked about democracy, right? We are the equal. We are the place that equalizes everything for everybody, right? We don't charge you, for to use the library. Library is free, you know. Um, so if you have the internet, you can still come and borrow a hotspot. You can borrow a hotspot for, up to 4 months at a time. I know people that they got rid of their internet service with Cox and Comcast, and they just keep borrowing the hotspot device. They got all their family members a library card. So Kelvin gets it for 4 months. J Ray gets it for another 4 months. DJ Sardang said you got a year's worth of library internet access, and you didn't pay that, whatever we pay, $150 a month or whatever, right? We also we partnered with the Housing Authority a couple years ago. We got a grant where we received 300 Chromebooks. We gave families in the Housing Authority, lower income folk, free Chromebooks. Help them set up their library accounts so that they could borrow the hotspots. Last year, we got a grant to provide 50,000 people in our community access to the internet through a partnership with Cox. So that's what the library can do. Right? We're that connector, that in between. We can be the provider. You talked about the unhoused individuals. We had there's money that they had because of COVID. We did a project where we got almost 400 cell phones, and we gave people, unhoused individuals, cell phones, and the library paid the bills for up to 24 months. We paid for the cell phone service and the data plan. Okay, that's what the library can do. What can the public do?
Yes.
First, the public needs to vote. That's what's in the. All right. So if you, I mean, I like, not to get that. That's the main thing.
That's what we
vote.
need. No, say what you need
Right?
to say,
Say
Kelvin.
what you
Like,
gotta
We need to
say.
vote
Yeah.
because there are people who don't believe that the library should exist and be providing the services that we provide to the public, right? Because they believe that people don't need the library because we got Google, or they right. But we just talked about how we know people who don't have computers and people who don't have the internet and people who don't have that technology that they need to access, discover, and deliver and get that material that I talked about, right?
mhm.
So voting is one. So voting is one of the main things, right? The other is, go to the library and volunteer. And, you know, um, if you've got some extra, if you happen to be fortunate enough to have some extra, funds, you know, consider donating to the library, supporting our foundation, supporting our programs, so that we can continue to um, do the things that we do, and maybe even look at some additional programs, right? So we just did a program where we're providing parents to newborns their first library books, as well as access to library programming for newborns, and they get it when they get the kit after, at the hospital. So we're working with the hospital to do
That's
that.
dope.
That's
So
excellent.
yeah, so there's all kinds of things that libraries do, and I'm only sharing, of course, from my library, but I've got colleagues around the country who are doing similar programming, as well, providing free legal services. For example, I know my colleague in the Baltimore area, Enoch Pratt, they got a mobile legal van or something that goes around and gives free legal advice. So the library is like, again, I said we're the equalizer. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm I'm giving y'all the buzzwords that I use,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We make things so that everybody has access.
So Kelvin, one of the important word that you're using over and over again is equalizer and equity, right?
Mhm.
Equity changes everything in our communities because while you were speaking, I was just reminded of a young man that I used to work with who was on the verge of um, being locked up unless he participated in some anger management courses that were provided online. The
Mm.
courts didn't ask him, do you have internet access or anything like that? They didn't ask him
Right.
any of that kind of stuff. They didn't provide him with a Chromebook or anything like that. Is no, if you want to stay out of jail, you need to go ahead and take these courses. Now you need to figure it out. And you just reminded me of the conversations that he and I were having about how he was going to get these things done, get these classes done. And the first thing we thought about was going to the library on Candler Road because they've got rooms that he could take a Chromebook in and hop online for these Zoom classes. They've got internet access, they've got Wi-Fi there at the library.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally the library was standing between him being free or going to jail. And I don't think things like that. I think there's people that do understand that, Kelvin,
Mm-hmm.
J Ray. There are people that Kelvin was talking about that do understand the importance of the libraries, and that's why they don't want us to have them. So I just wanted to
But
drive that point
yeah,
home really quickly before we pivot onto the next topic. But yeah, this is people keep your ears open and go in there and vote. So let's not get caught up in all that other hoopla.
vote. It, we talk about voting,
Mm-hmm.
and in all aspects of our lives. I don't really talk a lot about the voting aspects until people ask me, like, well, what is it that people need to do? Like you asked, that's what is key, because as easy as we have it, like I said, there are people, we have it, but there's also people who take the libraries, that don't know, who take it for granted and then don't go vote, who don't know about the classes or the access or the rooms that we have, or the Wi-Fi or the computers, or the so many things, the social service connect that we also have. Some libraries um, have social workers on staff who help people, with mental illness and but we also help make sure that people get fed. We also help make sure that people get clothed. We are a safe here in Nevada. Our libraries in Las Vegas, Park County, we're called a safe place. So, like, if a teen is having an issue at home, they can come to the library, and we'll connect them with resources. They talk about the human trafficking. We participate in helping, there as well. I mean, we do a lot of things that people don't know we do and participate in.
Wow. It's so interesting, Kelvin. So you have, it's as you were talking about the safe space, this unlocked a memory for me. So when, oh, this is a great memory. When I was in high school, there was a brother who ended up actually being the valedictorian of our high school. He actually worked at the library. So we would gather at the library and we would like do our homework together and like stuff like that. But we would literally do it in the library. And then when we were done our homework, it was probably like 5:30. And then we would like scatter and walk home to wherever we needed to be. But that safety, like we knew that was a place where we could go, that we would be okay. You know what I'm saying? And we can have access to books that we may have needed to get the homework done. Like everything was in there. We didn't have to like look for it. That safety, that knowing in the community that there's a place where you can go and there's information in there that you can go and get, and the people behind the counter want you to have it.
Right.
They want you to have it, right? They want to make sure that you have access. And this actually brings up, as we pivot, we have been hearing lots of conversations about and alarming statistics about literacy when we talking about young people. Literacy, so that's the reading, the writing, and the comprehension, Kelvin. And frankly, Sir Daniel and I have been alarmed by like the conversation itself. It's been scary. I've actually had conversations with educators and we've been talking about it too. And they're like, nah, no, it's real what you're hearing. Just as we kind of dive in, because we have a few more questions to ask, can you reflect on the importance of reading?
Well, I'm going to go even deeper, and I'm glad that you've had conversations with these educators, as we've seen for the past 10, 15 years. I mean, we can go back to see where we've had issues in our education system, right? The educational system. So this is not just this isn't a library thing, but we participate, and I'm going to talk about how we have worked to supplement our partners in the educational field, right? But when it comes to, it really comes down to the educational system, the decline in the support for our inner city schools, for example, right? The educators, or that we're teaching to the test, right?
Yes.
And so there's I'm not an educator. I'm just I'm a parent. I'm somebody that's, I guess you can say, well read on these subjects and really close to them because of the work that I do in the community with the community partners, the educators, because what people haven't realized, and this is again why going back to my voting, this is what we have to realize, is that educational system, the output of that is on the back end impacting our workforce and our future, right? We put that together. Put that together. If you don't have so if you don't have this educated population, there's an output, there's a correlation between education and workforce. Right? I get to see it and participate in these in-depth conversations about how these things work together and the impacts. We've had an issue with having our youth prepared for third grade reading for many years. That's why the library, our library system in particular, and others, that's why we started that newborn library program, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. It wasn't that Kelvin was just trying to be nice and give the kids the library books. There's a we have a problem. This isn't the only solution, but it helps if we are giving parents resources so they can start reading to their kids. The kids can start learning to love reading, and by the time they go to school, then they're already ready to be, engaged with reading and be prepared by the third grade, right? So there's a reason, right? There's a reason behind this madness, right? That
Yeah.
we do what we do. Kelvin does what he does, and libraries do what we do because it, at the end of the day, impacts and affects all of us. If we don't have these kids learning, reading, comprehending, educated, right? And then again, there's an output because this is the future. Like we're talking about the past. What we need to be talking about is the present and the future. That's because the past is the past. What are
It's
we
done.
doing now? Because that's going to be what's going to impact us in the future.
Absolutely.
All
You
right.
that piece about starting them reading from the moment they leave the hospital is so important because there is such a disconnect. I see it. There's such a disconnect between parents and their children that reading used to create such a bond between parent and
Mm-hmm.
child. I
Mm-hmm.
remember being young and reading to my mother, being excited about her. She used to read to me before I went to bed. Then I got so excited that I could read to her
Yes.
before I
Mm-hmm.
went to bed. And that created a bonding moment between us. Now we're seeing a disconnect between families basically because the young people are so connected to their phones, and there's such a disconnect, a breakdown in the bond between that could have happened when their parents were reading to them if they were doing that. But they know these babies know how to pick up a phone, and they know how to access
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, they know how to play the
Mm-hmm.
games, they can do all of that, and that's fine and dandy. But there is something about um reading to each other that is not just the literacy aspect, but there's a bonding piece that is missing now, and which I think creates a lot of strife between the generations and people, period. But that's another show.
I'm helping you. I'm helping y'all out for future shows here.
Yeah.
And
you
you know what?
you absolutely are.
I'll also add another piece to that, right?
Hmm.
Because you were hitting on this point about people and these babies having their devices, right?
Right.
But go further, that these kids get out of high school, for example, and can't even write a sentence,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
They can't write a
They
sentence.
cannot.
They,
That's
like there's no word, like, so you see you see these things, and I'm a practical person. So what I'm bringing is that to this conversation is that I live in the world like everybody else. So I just have to say, like, what helped I have my two daughters, 33, and my youngest daughter just turned 18. So I had the privilege of having access to books, right?
yes.
Yes.
I worked in book distribution. I worked for Borders.
Yeah.
I had relationship with publishers. I used to go to Book Expo. So I've always had books and materials, but I taught my oldest daughter how to read. She'd read the newspaper to me, even before I got into the book, the book spaces or libraries, right?
Hmm.
Take my youngest daughter, who's 18. I've been in this like space again for the past 18 years. So she still wants books for Christmas, like physical books,
Yes.
right? she's still reading like these things. That's and she's been fortunate enough, to do that. Graduated from high school. She's going to Michigan State in the fall. So not everybody has that privilege, right? Or even the forethought to say, let me get these kids the love of libraries, right? My daughter comes and she would come and spend the summers with me, my youngest, and she'd be at the library with me
Mm.
at the library,
Yeah.
like, cause she'd stay at the library,
Yeah.
um, or taking her to the Random House headquarters in New York, right? And having her
Mm.
talk to authors. And so I've had that, like, so they've had the privileges of, like, this is the world from the book and learning and education, and that I don't like. I'll give you I'll give you books. Like, I have a nephew that's incarcerated, and I'll send him books for, you know, I'm gonna send you some books instead of some money,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So you can, because I want you reading. I want you,
Yes.
educated on what's happening out here.
That see, so what Kelvin is showing us Q Points listeners, um, is that you can still have an influence on somebody in that respect. If you providing them books, parents especially, you can still have impact on your kids, regardless of what these celebrities are doing, what their favorite rapper is saying. You can still have the first and most important impact on your kids. And speaking of celebrities, I want y'all to check this out. So here's a quote from none other than Mr. West himself, Kanye West. He recently said in I believe it was a Rolling Stone article, he said, quote, "When you said I hadn't read this book, I actually haven't read any book. Reading is like eating Brussels sprouts for me." Let me repeat that. Reading is like eating Brussels sprouts
Brussels
for
sprouts are
me.
delicious, by the way.
I just ate some last night, so that's
Listen,
so
so
we
we're not gonna comment on like maturity level of the brother Ye, and how underdeveloped his palate is, because
Right.
Brussels sprouts could be hooked up too. But if someone like that, the youth are so concerned about the takes and the cues that they receive from these celebrities and musicians in particular, well, should we be concerned about what their favorite artists or celebrities do not find any value in reading? Yes, we need to find that. That's
That's
interesting.
concerning.
That's concerning that they don't find value in reading. And
well,
like, what can we do about
I'm
that?
trying to be. I read this. I knew this question was coming potentially.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I he's just a fool. I mean, just I don't even know. I'm just trying to figure out what I
And
wanted to
has a
say.
school of his own.
And
And
has
has
a
a school
school.
named after his
And
mother, who was a professor.
right, and I think when I say he's a fool, this is what I let me. I think he says things and does the opposite thing of those things. Because at the end of the day, you remember, before he became who he is today, he actually went to college. Remember, he went to college. He
Mm-hmm.
was in college. So clearly he was reading something.
Something.
And I think he's using his celebrity in a wrong way. And what we and the public and your listeners, right? We need to change who our kids look up to as celebrities. They need to be. I don't want to be. I mean, like we've got young folks here in Las Vegas. I got a librarian on my staff. He worked with me down in Florida. I know this is a question that was coming up later, but I'm gonna hit on it now. In that he's a celebrity. He's a celebrity to these kids in the community. Um, he is. somebody that we're helping to promote on social media. He's promoting himself on social media. He's got his own social. He's got his own channel. He's got his own following. He's actually got his own, sweatshirts and all his other gear as well. And I think he's going to even go further. We just we just wrapped a few weeks ago the filming of an episode of Queer Eye that he's going to be featured on, along with the library, by the way. But
Yeah.
but we did this, he did this, right? I recommended him for the show. And that's going to be coming out probably later this year around December or something. I think it's like episode 9. So we're going to be promoting the library, reading, literacy. They even filmed one of his story times with the kids. That's going to be on. That's so we, as I said, we need to change where our kids look to from from celebrities, right? That they need to be making folks like librarians, teachers, other folks. That's who should be these are the celebrities, and not really promoting these people that say foolish things or tracking the most thing, something that's on social. And they talking more about Drake and all of that stuff, and we got the whole world probably crumbling around us with what's happening with voting and politics and so on and so forth. And we want to keep the conversation going about a beef. So that's what I'll say.
We got beef with illiteracy.
We do got beef
Right.
with illiteracy. That needs to be a
Yeah.
shirt. Kelvin,
Write that down.
right. I do not want to lose the importance of also having you on this show to have this conversation, because I do not remember ever having a black male librarian. That's just not a thing that I remember. And so we're seeing folks on social media, like you just indicated, right, that are building, their own celebrity, talking about libraries, talking about reading, etc. Can you talk to us? Because Sir Daniel alluded to this earlier. People were on social media talking about library science. That's not a real thing. And we're sitting there like, what are y'all talking about? It doesn't make sense. Can you talk about the importance of black men studying library science and being librarians?
Yeah, I mean, when I got into this field, as I said, I think I hadn't really seen many black librarians. My first interaction, and actually tomorrow, I'm actually heading to the National Conference of African American Librarians tomorrow. So I'm gonna see a lot of black male librarians tomorrow. And so in 1999, I went to my first National Conference of African American Librarians, and I had the opportunity to meet several black male librarians. There's only a few of us. Probably 2% of the profession is black male librarians. And so the importance of it is, that people who use the library recognize the library, that they see people that represent them. That's what I mean. We know that our population is changing here in this country, and that who best to serve us are the people that represent us, the people that know us, the people that can have this conversation that I'm having today with you gentlemen, right? Is that I'm not coming from this just from a librarian perspective. I'm coming as from a black man. I'm coming from the inner city. I'm coming from, and I ain't even talk about my experiences. I mean, right? I'm coming from all of those places. And so it's important that people then see us and that we share what we've gone through to get here, and that people can see, hey, um, there are black, not only there are black librarians, but there are black male librarians, and that black men can also be library directors like myself, that we can be leading these large organizations, right? That we can be a part of the, the community. I get this all the time. I get it all the time, and I'm pretty much like known in the, in the spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
But especially when I move to a new community, right? When I moved to Vegas, and people introduce, they say, hey, and if I'm with some of my staff who happen to be majority Caucasian, right? So the Caucasian man walks in, and the people immediately assume that that's the library director. They they don't see me, or that when and I come to some places really unassuming. Right? I may go to a reception, and I'm just hanging back in the cut, just
That is your
chilling,
style.
right?
Like Kelvin do be just like right.
right? I'm just hanging, right? I'm just like surveying the spaces, and my staff may be there, and then my staff will bring people over to introduce them to me, and there's sometimes a little uh,
Taking it
uh,
back.
you know, taken aback a lot. First, that I'm black, that I'm a man, that I'm my age. I mean, I got a whole bunch of
Right.
things going on, right? And that, uh, so that happens, right? And so, but when I'm and it even happens in our community as well. When I'm in our community, I go places, and people like, he's the library director. They are you a librarian? I mean, I got that. I still get it I'll probably get it today. So if I go somewhere and tell somebody that I'm a librarian, if they're going to be taken aback by it. So, but again, the importance of it is just that uh, we're here, we're growing, we're recruiting. We're mentoring one another. The young man that works on my team here, I've been mentoring him and working with him for the past 14 years. When he was an undergrad,
Wow.
and didn't even have his library degree, he attended Lincoln University like I did, with a cohort of other folks who were interested, black folks who were interested in becoming librarians. And this program produced, I think, five librarians, five male librarians, black male librarians that came out of this program. One works for me as a branch manager here. He's worked for me in Vegas. He worked for me in Florida. Um, and then there's another one. He's in Dayton, Ohio. He's a he's kind of like a branch manager in Dayton, Ohio. And then one of the other ones, he's actually working. He went to library school, and then he worked. He's never worked in the library, but he's worked in the library business, the information business, on the information side, from a sales perspective. So again, you wouldn't even know that. I mentioned myself. I'm the library director of Las Vegas, the library director for LA County Public Library. She's a black female. The director at Austin Public Library, in Texas, black man. The director of the Philadelphia Free Library is a black man.
I didn't know that. I gotta go down there and see
I would
that,
have never
bro.
known I would have never known any of this stuff.
So there's several of, and I can go. I can go on. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, I was going to say a lot, but I just named the director of Cleveland Public Library, black man. The director of Harris County Library in Texas, black man. Several. And I'm just going off there's several of us, and these are public library directors. I didn't even talk about the library administrators of schools, or from the academic side, how many leading professors and library deans and university librarians that are black, and black in general, but black men as well.
That's powerful. That's super powerful. I think what they I know it's cliche now, but what they say about representation for sure matters. And I'm glad we've had this opportunity to speak with you today, Kelvin, on this episode of Q Points Podcast. But I would be remiss if I did not ask you, bring it back to music just a little bit.
Got it.
Because like I said, we're men of a certain age. We came up in a certain generation where, we heard slogans like reading is fundamental. And as we got a little older, we started seeing campaigns that featured some of our favorite musicians in alliance with reading campaigns. I mean, hell, I'll never forget. Who was it? I think Jerry, you were talking about you sparked a core memory with me also about those book fairs at school, and how if you didn't have any money, you felt poor. I mean, I felt if my mom did not give me a couple dollars to take with me so I could order some books, I felt like I was a black sheep. I completely left out of all the fun. But I'll never forget there was like a LL Cool J poster.
I remember the LL Cool J read poster. Very vividly.
Get caught reading or something like that, and just how powerful that was. But Kelvin, I got to ask you, am I missing it? I don't see those anymore. Is that a thing of the past?
They're still around. They don't use as many music artists as they used to. They still use celebrities though. Actors and actresses. The American Library Association, which is the association that represents, I think, there's 50,000 librarians across the country. They're the ones who produce those posters. There's LeVar Burton, of course. You guys know about Reading Rainbow.
Yeah.
If you haven't, if you and the listeners haven't watched that documentary around Reading Rainbow, it's great. Talks about a lot of the things that we were just talking about, today. But so they're still around. The Read posters are still around. They've transitioned a little bit. They're not in. Well, they're probably not in as many schools as they used to be. And I don't think we put them up in many libraries, in the public libraries, as we used to as well. But the campaigns are still there. It's just kind of transition, man. And I think, we don't use, well, we talked about this earlier. We got Kanye West who talking about, how reading is like eating Brussels sprouts or whatever. So, there's a challenge in getting the right celebrity on that reading poster.
That is true. He's probably not the only one.
You might be right, but what you have to know, and I think we did that back then. There was more of it throughout the years, right? Because libraries and music and the arts are so tied together, right? We are, we're intertwined. We've got art galleries in our libraries. Actually, next week we're doing. This is interesting. I think folks would like this. Next week we're going to have a hip hop architecture camp for teens. Where we're combining hip hop and architecture, and so the kids will be creating their own raps and music videos.
We gotta go out to. We gotta make it back out to. We were out in Vegas when we were nominated for the Ambies. We gotta go back to Vegas and hang out. Yes.
So look this up, and this is a national program actually. Where the guy who started it, his name is Michael Ford. He's out of the Detroit area, but he's done this in different cities. We did a 1-day camp during Super Bowl, and then we expanded it to a full week, and so next week is going to be the full week. But the kids create little architecture buildings out of like paper clips and all kinds. So it's like and like I said at the end, it combines art, literature, music, to this thing. So look up hip hop architecture. And you'll see there's a lot of videos of these young people, and that's how we're keeping the teens in the libraries. We're keeping them in the libraries by focusing on things that they're interested in, and then getting them, getting them that way to the books and the reading. We got podcast studios in our libraries. We got DJ booths in our libraries as well. We got the teens have their own spaces, for example. So that's just, so again, we have art galleries in our libraries as well. So here in Vegas, yeah.
Man, this is awesome. Kelvin, thank you so much for taking the time. Where should folks best connect? Should they visit the library to best connect with all the stuff that you have going on? How should folks stay connected to you, the libraries? What's that? How should folks do that?
There are multiple ways. If you want to connect with me, you can reach me, at my email. If you want to email me, watsonk@lvccld.org. You can go to our website, thelibrarydistrict.org, here to see what we're doing here in Vegas, the programs, the books, all of that stuff. Sign up for our newsletter. We've got, where we highlight and profile things. If you're not in the Las Vegas area, visit your public library. I just talked about, man, if you're in Austin, man, go to the Austin Public Library. You're in LA, you're in, St. Louis, Columbus, Ohio, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, wherever you're at. Like I said, I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow, the New Orleans Public Library, and you'll get to see, and talk to a librarian. You can go physically, or you can just go to their website and look it up and look up the library and see what's going on. And if you don't have a library card, man, that's the best free thing you can get. Like, there's some free stuff out here. Get your library card. If you don't have a library card, get a library card. We call it Get Carded. We have a whole campaign around, black getting, and it's called Get Carded. We got T-shirts that say #Get Carded, and people have really, that's my challenge to people, is to get a library card.
Man, oh man. Kelvin Watson is the executive director of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. And Kelvin, thank you so much for joining us here on Q Point, sharing your knowledge. This has just been a really, really dope and rich conversation, brother. We really appreciate you.
I thank you both. And it's been a great conversation, because I don't get to talk about some of this stuff sometimes, or all the time. And I probably said more things than I normally say about a whole lot of different topics.
Well, hold tight real quick, Kelvin. We gonna wrap up real quick. Hold tight 1 second. Man, oh man, Sir Daniel. My goodness.
What an amazing, amazing conversation. Wow. Like, library, I'm going to, when we wrap up, I'm going to go and get my library card. There is a library literally 2 minutes from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I can go there right now and apply for a library card, and I'm going to look up all the things that my neighborhood library has to offer, aside from being beautiful. The worst thing, J. Ray, is the only time that a lot of us go to the library in this neighborhood is so that we can file our taxes, because you can get your taxes
or in some cases voting, right? Right.
Exactly. We need to change that, because the libraries have so much more to offer. It's like Kelvin said: access, discover, and deliver. It all takes place at the library.
Man, oh man, oh man. Sir Daniel, listen, this has been an amazing conversation. I want to just remind folks, stay connected to Q Points. Let us know if you have your library card. Leave us a message. You can always, of course, leave us a video message or an audio message, but let us know. Do you have your library card? What's your first library experience? Let us know. But stay connected to Q Points. If you see us, if you hear us, subscribe. Visit our website at qpoints.com. Join our newsletter. Read Q Points magazine. And just generally stay connected. Also, you can, of course, shop our store. We're so grateful for all of y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, it's like I always say, Jerry, in this life, we have all the opportunity. You can either pick up the needle or you can let the record play. I'm DJ Sir Daniel.
My name is J. Ray, y'all.
And this has been Q Points Podcast, dropping the needle on Black music history. And Sonia Massey should still be alive.